Today I will be going over how to pass variables between two different bezels. For this we use like a jQuery trigger and an event handler. To start here, I'm just going to have a button and a text input, and this bezel is going to send the text to a different bezel. Here in the custom builder, I have just some simple lines of code, a button and an input, and then in the on button click, I'm going to put some jQuery. So in, when the button gets clicked, the goal is to send whatever was inputted by the user to a different bezel. And I don't think we have a snippet for it. It's something we're going to add here in the future, but right now I'm just going to copy and paste it from a different document. So there's a couple different parts to this trigger statement. The first one here is the ID of where the event is happening, and right now we're just using Bezl panel, and that covers the entire panel. The second part here is this select account, and I've actually kind of pulled this from a different bezel that we use this in, so some of this might make like the whole select account and the bezel.data account doesn't really match up with this current bezel, but we're just going to change it. So the select account here is actually the name of the event. So on the other side, the event handler is actually going to be looking for the specific name. So I'm just going to do test event, and then the second portion, or the third portion here, is actually what value it's going to send. So here I'm just going to drag and drop this text value, and this bezel should be good to go. So just to kind of recap here, let me go to the beginning. This bezel has a button and then an input, and whenever that button is clicked, it's gonna trigger a jQuery event to send that input's text. And then on the other bezel, we're gonna set up an event handler. Now, this only works if the bezels are on the same panel, since it uses that bezel panel ID. There's other ways to send data to bezels that operate on different panels, and that is through cookies or the local storage or session storage variables. And I think we've gone over that. If we haven't, I can definitely cover that in a different session. So in our second bezel here, we're just going to do a pre-tag, and then we're just going to write a bezel var to be displayed in this pre-tag. Going to add that variable. And then on the ng-on-init function, we're actually going to set up that event handler. So once again, I copied this from a different bezel, but it's pretty similar to the last jQuery code snippet we talked about. So this is actually just going to look on the panel, or it's going to look for the element with the panel class, and that's where this event handler is going to exist. It's going to look for select account, which we change to test event, I believe. And then it's going to run this function when it receives that event. So it's going to pass in that event, and it's going to pass in that parameter. So for here, you could write extensive code within this function to run, but for today, we're just going to do a simple, we're going to set our local variable, our Bezl local variable, to that parameter that is passed. And then we're just going to display that local variable. So right now, it's just an empty string. And then I'm going to make a panel with both those bezels on it. If my site cooperates. I think this join.me is just taking my resources, but okay, here we go. Let's see how quick this acts. So right now, that input is nothing, that local variable. We're just going to do a simple test. I'm going to send that text. It actually sends that variable's value over to the other Bezl. Some of our old Bezls use this quite frequently. Our accounts view Bezl, where it has a list of accounts, will actually have this, it will actually send the selected account to a couple different Bezls, and those Bezls will actually use that account to input CRM calls or input tasks. So this can be very useful when you're trying to make a whole panel interact with each other. Instead of just using one Bezl for that panel to do, a couple different things, you can have multiple Bezls on that panel, each doing its own separate thing.